Hey everybody, and welcome back to Love Like Crazy. We're your hosts, Jay and Stacy Coleman, and it is so great to be able to have the opportunity to spend time together today. We're excited about the topic that we're going to be discussing today, and I know you guys are probably saying, hey, they're excited about every topic that they discuss, and it's true. We just love the opportunity to be able to speak into the health and strength of your marriage and your family and your life. And so if you are enjoying this podcast, do us a favor, like, subscribe, share, give us a review. And here's another thought. If there is a topic that you would like for us to specifically speak to, let us know about that. We would love the opportunity to be able to share some thoughts on some different areas, maybe some different topics that we haven't yet thought of. And so today, as we dive off into this conversation, we're going to be talking about something that my wife loves to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, the name of this podcast is Love Like Crazy, and let me tell you what I love like crazy, and that's my kids.
You do. You know
I
what
love
we
my kids.
Let me tell you what you love like crazy even more than that is your grandkids.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, that's a whole nother topic
Now,
that we'll get to
Can
sometime.
I say this before we get into the topic?
What's
We
that?
actually some time ago we had an episode where we had our son and daughter-in-law on, Tyler and Brittany, and I made a joke while they were on the program that they had news to share that she was gonna, she was pregnant again.
Had some news to share, and she said no.
She said no way. They had 3 children at that point, and she shut me down on that. No way, that is not going to happen. And wouldn't you know it, about 3 days later, now the production turnaround on these episodes is a couple of weeks, couple months, something like that. But the very week that episode actually aired, we announced that they were pregnant with their 4th child, our 5th grandchild, mind you. And so love those grandbabies.
That's right. Love them like crazy.
And so
that's
now
for sure.
I'm going to speak this. I said that in that episode, but I'm going to speak this. We're anxiously awaiting the arrival of our another grandson.
Oh, we don't know if it's a boy or girl.
I'm
You're speaking
in
it.
faith.
Okay. Well,
I'll take whatever
we'll
that
come
whatever
back
it
with
is.
that information at
I'll
a later
be happy
date.
with the baby no matter what it is, but I would love to have
Well,
another
the reason
boy.
why we want another grandson is because we only have one, and we think he needs a brother. That's
That'd be
why.
cool.
Because he's so outnumbered with his sisters, and all of his cousins are girls. So to have a brother would be awesome for him.
I love my little huddy buddy, but it sure would be great if he had a buddy of his own.
That's true. That's true. Well,
So let's talk about your kids.
Okay, so today's topic, I want to just talk about ways that we can bring out the best in our kids.
Okay.
I think it's an important topic to discuss, and I think that we're a very close-knit family. I would say they were.
I think probably a good way to see that is our kiddos all wound up close to us. We all live within 5 miles of each other. And I know that they had they're the opportunity there with careers and whatnot to move away. But we do like being close in proximity with each other and always winding up at each other's houses.
Well, I think it's an awesome thing that when your adult children want to spend time with you, when they've moved out, they have their own family, but yet we still love to get together and want to be around each other. I think that's quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, it is a regular occurrence that they will call and say, hey, we haven't had family night in a couple of weeks. When are we going to do a family night? And
it may be because they're low on groceries and they just want us to cook for them, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm like, come on, bring all those babies and come see us.
It is a fact that whenever they come over for family night, I've tried the thing where they chip in for the food.
That doesn't always go well.
That did not go over well. They were like, what is going on here?
We try to assign, hey, you bring this, you bring the other. And then I'm like, sorry, we don't have dessert tonight because so-and-so forgot to bring it or something happened or whatever.
But it's great to spend time together regardless.
Yes, it is. It is. I love being around my kids. I do think that they're close. As brothers, they're very close. And even as, just as a family, we're very close knit, and I love that. I love that we want to spend time with each other. But so we're going to talk about ways that we can bring out the best in our kids. And one of the things that I want us to talk about is how very important it is for us to, with our children, because they're all individual, they're different ages. Your kids may be really small right now, or you may be in the stage that we're at, empty nesting. But regardless, we can still accept their uniqueness.
Well,
each one is very, very unique.
Let me say this to you. Whether they're preschoolers, whether they're they have their own family or whether they're teenagers, every season of life has its own
Mhm.
challenges. Now, it has its own
So
advantages
true.
and its greatness about it, but each season also has its challenges as well. I love
Mhm.
Proverbs 24:3, where it says it takes wisdom to have a good family, and
Mhm.
it takes understanding to make it strong. So you need to be able to walk in the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, but you need to that this is one of the things that I love about the Holy Spirit is he will give you we take wisdom and it turns into understanding how to be able to figure things out,
Mhm.
but also to be able to speak to the things that are right in front of you. And I love what you bring up about uniqueness because accepting their uniqueness is a huge thing. Because a lot of times as parents, we have ideas about our kids.
Mhm.
Like I would love for them to go into this occupation, or I would love for them to take up this hobby, or I would love for them to be able to, to be this way or be like a sibling.
Mhm.
And each of our kids are different.
Or like the things that we like, or but that's not always the case because they're each unique. We're all made uniquely. um the Lord created us that way, and I think that we have to be intentional in building those individual relationships with each one of our children, and that is in itself accepting their uniqueness. And like what you said, we don't want to compare our kid. That's We don't want to fall into that trap where we are comparing our kids with each other or somebody else's kids and saying, well, I wish you'd be more like this person or that person. We need to accept that they each have their own special giftings. Wouldn't you agree? And a lot of times, as parents, we see that already from when they're younger. We start to see the different. I have one of our sons uh, entered into engineering, and I used to say all the time when he was little, "You're going to grow up to be an architect." I can just see it, the way that he could
He loved to build
build
stuff.
things out of nothing.
He
It
was
was
always he was all about the Legos, all about connects, all
almost like a
about
MacGyver. He could just make different things with, say a paper clip and a piece of tinfoil or
well, I
something.
I don't know if you remember this or not. He was in the office one time. He was probably at this, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. He was bored and he took a whole bunch of he had coffee stirs, he had
Mhm.
lifesavers, and he had tape,
And he built a
and he
car?
built a car.
Uh-huh.
He took all
Yeah.
that and made a like a toy car out of that. And I walked by and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm building a car." And I'm just like, whatever.
K
And I come back by later on, he has a car and he's playing with it, rolling
Yeah.
around on the floor, and I'm like, "Okay, that's pretty
So
cool." But he had that ability, it was a gifting that the Lord put in
right.
him.
And so, to say the least, he is the one that we go to if we want a piece of furniture built or something put together. We're like, just give it to him because he can put it together in no time flat.
Well, and I'll tell you, there are advantages to this, to each of them having their own giftings and abilities. Like our oldest son, he has the ability musically. He
Mhm.
is the young fella can actually play pretty much about any instrument. He's got a great voice. I know people say you're a little biased, and I am, but I think that
Mhm.
he has a tremendous voice. And
Mhm.
so a lot of times there's things that we do where we require a musician or we need somebody to sing, and he just jumps right in there and
Mhm.
fills that gap. Reese is our fixer. He's the one that if there's something broke, we call on him.
Yeah.
Some years ago, we had a hurricane. We live in Louisiana, and we had a hurricane that came through our area, and there was a lot of work to be done, a lot of cleanup to be done. And I had went and bought a brand new chainsaw to be able to go out and do some cleanup work. Well, the night that I'm preparing to leave, I put the chainsaw on my truck, could not get it to crank for anything. And I mind you, brand new chainsaw, would not crank. And I cranked and cranked and cranked, couldn't get it to start. Well, Reese comes and he's like, "Here, I'll fix it for you." And I'm like, I'm aggravated at this point because if Dad can't fix it, nobody
Right,
can.
right.
And I went in the house frustrated,
I
and sure
remember
enough,
this very vividly. I
it
remember
it was
this.
not a good moment in my life. Sure enough, about 15 minutes later, Reese comes in and I hear the chainsaw running outside. He comes in, he's like, "I solved the problem. I Googled it and found out that this is a problem with vapor lock, all this kind of stuff. So I
You
fixed it."
researched it.
He did. And he's like, "Here's how you get the chainsaw to run." And I'm like, for one of those moments for my son, who was probably about 20 years old at the time, to basically show me up. It was very humbling, but it also showed me that he's my guy that I go to now if I need
Right,
something fixed.
right.
Bryce is the one that he'll just throw in and help with anything and kind of muscle through.
Mhm.
So there's times where I've built stuff, times where we've added on additions at our camp and stuff like that. and Bryce is the one who's right there with me, lifting boards and hammering stuff together. They all help,
Mhm.
but he's kind of the one that in those instances, and everybody
Yeah.
says he's the most like me.
Mhm.
But each of them have their own unique abilities, their own unique giftings.
Yeah.
Bryce is also the one that keeps the entire family
Oh
laughing.
my gosh, he's our comedian.
He is the comedian. If there's
Yeah.
something positive to be found in a situation, he's going to find it. He's going to have us laughing about it. And
Yeah.
if we're in a negative situation, he's going to make us laugh
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah.
So I love that about,
Mhm.
accepting their uniqueness, because your kiddos are different.
Yeah. And he was also the one that, I mean, they were all athletic, but he was probably the one that pursued that the most. And so I think it's important, whatever special giftings that your kids have, you need to encourage that in them, and help to pave a way for them. Um, but
Now, I want to say this too, because one of the things that you're a musician.
hmm
You have
So that was easy for me to encourage that with our oldest.
you have a degree in music, in vocal performance with a minor in piano. So you were a music teacher for many, many years.
Mhm.
So that was something that we desired in all of our kiddos, to have those musical giftings and abilities. Like I said, our oldest has that. He's got that unique
Mhm.
talent and gifting inside. It does not come from me.
Mhm.
The youngest one, actually, he will not sing, but he has a tremendous voice as well.
Mhm.
But he's a bass player. He
Yep.
took up playing the bass, took lessons, and he has actually excelled to the place to where he now plays on one of our worship teams at the church. And Bryce, do you remember he said, I have some musical giftings and talent that I would like to see expand. Do you remember what it
Mhm.
was?
Yeah, he wanted us to
Fiddle
fiddle,
lessons
fiddle,
and banjo lessons.
and I said, I don't know how to play the fiddle, and I don't know anybody that teaches that, so I'm not sure
Well,
how we can help you.
he wanted to play. He was like, I'm gonna play the fiddle and I'm gonna play the banjo, either
Mhm.
or. And
Mhm.
I gotta admit, I repented, because at that point he told me
Yeah.
that, and I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. No, who plays the banjo? Well, we're gonna start a bluegrass band, But I thought he was kidding about it, but he
He
really
was
was not.
really serious. Yeah, he came back to that.
And
What
so after telling him that was crazy, I'm not paying for banjo lessons or fiddle
Mhm.
lessons, and I don't
Mhm.
even know anybody where we would start looking for that.
Mhm.
And so shut down that dream in his life. And I actually apologized to him some time back. He's 24, 25 now, something like that. And I apologized to him for throwing water on his banjo
Yeah,
playing,
his dream.
aspirations. And he was like, well, Dad, you paid for, lessons for Tyler. You paid for lessons for Reese. Now that you realize that this could be something that could, be in my life, you owe me banjo lessons. And I shut that dream down. So I'm
Still
not paying for banjo
still
lessons.
looking for that teacher for sure.
But I just think it's kind of cool that each of them are so different. They grew
Yeah,
up together, very close in
very
relationship,
close.
but they're all different. And man, your kids, I don't care what they look like. I don't care if they're boys or girls. They are all unique, and God put them
Mhm.
in your life for you to be able to speak into their life, build them, shape them, grow them,
Yeah,
and help them fulfill the purpose that He has for
right.
them.
And again, their unique individuality for sure needs to be encouraged, that they not be compared, to one another, because the Lord created us, to be originals and not carbon copies of someone else, or even a copy of their own parents, though they get a lot of, different traits from us. But we're talking about Bryce. He was our middle one, and okay, so his brothers, they're musicians and so forth. But when he was little, and I'd always heard about children that are in the middle, that having like a middle child syndrome
Yeah.
or whatever. And I just remember thinking I did not want that to be the case for him, and so I was very intentional on making sure that he in no way felt left out, or, squashed being in the middle. And I remember when he was real young, I began to tell him, I said, you know what, Bryce, you are so special. And I know that sounds cheesy, but I would say you really are
Yeah, his
special.
brothers would say he was special, all right.
Not in that way. I meant that he was special in the way that I said, you're the only one who has an older brother and a younger brother. Your your
Look
oldest
at you
brother.
putting that positive
I know.
spin.
I was I was yeah, I was. I was encouraging him, and I wanted him to know just very how important he was, and but of course, as a child, I mean, he responded well to that,
Yeah.
because I in no way wanted him to grow up with any kind of complex
Yeah, look at mama
middle
putting the positive spin on
middle child syndrome kinda thing. Yeah.
mama putting the positive spin on that on something that potentially could have been negative.
Could have been, yeah, it could have been negative. So it's just very important to, yes, accept their special giftings and see that, encourage that in them, and just how unique that they are.
I think that there's a possibility dads may fall into this category more so than moms, but the possibility that sometimes we project our expectations on our kids.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like you have these aspirations of your son being this high school football star because you were a high school football star, or it could be musical,
Mm-hmm.
it could be something with grades.
Mm-hmm.
My sons, they were, none of them were all-star students. We live by the mindset of C's get degrees, because I mean I was just an
Oh
average student
gosh.
in school. And so, as long as they did their best and they brought home, grades that were C's or better, we were okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing is this, a lot of times we have these expectations we put on our kiddos based off of
That's
our
true.
mindset. And we need to understand that, just because our oldest child is a straight A student does not mean that their next sibling or even the youngest sibling is going to be a straight A student. They may just be an average student. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love this, to be able to, as parents, to accept the uniqueness that God has designed each of them with, and to help them to be able to excel in that, help them be able to, hey, listen, you're showing musical ability, so we want to be able to do everything that we can to help you grow in that.
Mm-hmm.
You are showing, you've got a great work ethic, so we want to be able to help you grow in that. Because as you go throughout life, you've got to have great work ethic to be able to provide for family one day, or to
Right.
be productive in society. Hey, you've got this hunger and this thirst and this desire in your heart and in your life for God. So we want to be able to help you grow spiritually in that aspect. Our kids are all unique, and we need to be able to help to grow
Mm-hmm.
that within them.
And we know that the Proverbs that says, train up a child in the way he should go, actually, the Amplified Version says, train a child in keeping with his individual gift or bent. So it's so very important that we, lead our kids into how God created them to be. And then two,
Well, let me say this before you move to the next thing, because when you said that, talking about bent, it reminded me of years ago. I took a trip to Mexico. It was a men's trip. We went on a missions trip, and we were going throughout these communities. We were preaching. We were being able to have the opportunity to share the gospel
mhm,
with people. And I remember one day we went into the market to shop for souvenirs for the family, and they had one of the booths that was set up, and a guy it was gold wire. It
mhm,
was these literal rolls of gold wire, and he would, whatever word or name that you wanted,
he
he would
would
take
bend
that
it.
wire, and you've
Mhm,
probably seen this, he would
mhm,
write your name with that wire. And he had a couple small tools there, and he was bending that wire every which way to write out whatever your name or whatever the word was. And it just made me think of the work that God does on each of us. He's bending us and shaping us, as whenever we're children, especially, but all throughout our lives as well, to make us the unique person that He has created us to be, to
mhm.
walk in His God, His righteousness, to grow daily in our relationship with Him.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how much more than with our kids and in their
That's true.
life.
That's true. Well, and another way that we can bring out the best in our kids is to affirm their value. And I think that one of the first ways that we can do that is to give them the attention
Some
that
one-on-one attention.
some one-on-one attention, spending time together. That's how you get to know someone, is when you spend time together. And we need to get to know our children, uh, on a personal one-on-one um,
Relationship.
relationship level, to where and once we have that relationship built, you know then you can easily affirm their value and speak into their lives and encourage them in the way that they need to be encouraged, and
Well,
that
I don't mean to
comes by.
interrupt your thought,
Go ahead.
but I want to say this to you. I want to compliment you in that way, because I watched throughout the boys, even today, how you would make time for them individually.
Mhm.
You loved a lot of the one-on-one time with them.
Mhm.
whether it was to take them to do something or just sitting and talking with them.
Mhm.
I'll walk in the kitchen now, and there you are sitting having a conversation with one of them. They're grown men, but you'll be having a conversation with them because you love that one-on-one time with them. And I can say that means so much to your kids when you make that time for
Mhm.
them. You are showing them that you value them. I
Yes.
know as a kid, my mom, one of the things that I still remember to this day, she has pictures of this, that she would take me out of school one day a year.
Okay.
And it
Mhm.
was just a day that me and her would go to the park. We would go to the zoo. It was always a day that, she would plan something special just for me and her to do. And I still have pictures. I guess I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old. And there's pictures of me on the swings. There's pictures of me going down a slide. And it
Mhm.
was it was me and mom day. I guess if you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
title it, me and
Mo
mom day.
well,
Uh,
mother and son
yeah.
date.
And my mom may not, realize even, I mean, that was
A long time
45
ago.
years ago, but she may not realize that even today I remember that.
Mhm.
And let me say this to you as parents, your kids will remember the time that you make for
They're gonna
them.
remember things that are so very important that we don't even think of how important it could be to them, and they hang on to those things. And one of the main things that I think as parents that we really need to um, focus on is taking each and every opportunity that we get to spend that one-on-one time. Now that my boys are grown, it's like if I can get them on the phone with a conversation, I am there for it. And then even like here recently, I know one of them were like, "Hey," called us up. "Hey, what are you doing? Do you want to go to?" I literally dropped everything because I thought I'm gonna not miss this opportunity to go and spend some one-on-one time. And I especially remember that being the opportunity when they were teenagers. You know, a lot of times when they were like a senior in high school, they did this work program where they would go to school like half a day and then have work. And then there were some times where they would have a break, and I got to like take them to lunch or whatever. And it's an opportunity to say, hey, how are things going, and find out really what is happening in their lives,
Yeah.
and staying connected to them, and what's going on with their friends, and just being in their life, and being there to be that positive influence to them, but also to encourage them and to affirm the value that they have. And that comes with focusing like the one-on-one time with each other, but having eye contact and being engaged,
Intentional.
being intentional. You know, I know it's kind of old fashioned, but sitting down and having a meal together as a family is quite the opportunity to be able to say, how are things going? Let's have a conversation over this dinner meal.
Well, and as long as we're paying, they like that when we pay.
Yes, yes,
Now,
of course.
I'm going to say this as well because you're talking about spending time with your sons, but now we have bonus.
Yeah.
Because look, let
Oh,
me
my
say this to
girls,
you, like
yes.
whenever we get to go hang out with the girls,
Mhm.
we have 3 beautiful, wonderful daughter-in-laws, and when we get
Mhm.
to go hang out with them, that is it's awesome. You are
Mhm.
not outnumbered anymore.
No.
She was outnumbered by testosterone for all those years because it was you and me and 3 sons.
Mhm.
Well, now we've got 3 daughter-in-laws in the mix. We have several granddaughters in the mix.
Mhm.
2 or 3 that are here,
Mhm.
and now I'm going to speak faith that grandson. It's grandson. So with all of that in mind, now we have the opportunity to go over and see, Tyler and Brittany, and we get to hang out with the grandkids, Bryce and Sarah, and get to hang out with the grandbaby, and Reese and Kayla, and get to hang out with Murphy the Wonder Dog, because that's
That's
their
our
baby,
grand dog,
our
yeah.
grand dog. But love that time that we're able to spend with them, because
Mhm.
here's one thing that you need to know as parents. We think of all the investments we make here on this earth in things like our 401k. Maybe you've got an IRA that you're investing in. Those types of things for retirement are amazing. But the best thing that you can ever invest your time in, aside from your relationship with God, is if you were a parent, investing in your relationship with your kiddos, pouring
Mhm.
time into them, spending time with them,
Making deposits.
making deposits in their lives.
Mhm.
And those are the things that you are constantly, when you spend that time, you are affirming their value. You're showing them how important they are to you within your life. And I'm just a great advocate for being able to take that time whenever you can.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of funny because we had an opportunity. This was probably a couple months ago. It was before they had the baby. Bryce and Sarah, they called, invited us over to watch the LSU game. And we live in
Go
South
Tigers.
Louisiana. Go Tigers! Everybody is a huge LSU fan.
Mhm.
This year is not quite playing out the way that we had hoped it would, but it's actually it's starting to look up a little bit. But we had we had the invite to go over to their house and hang out with them, and I got to tell you what, it was amazing. Now,
Mm.
you say, and of course, everybody says that me and Bryce are the most alike.
Mhm.
We're very alike in personality, and when we get together, we argue about everything.
Mhm.
And
Right.
we did. We got into an argument that night.
Yes.
I don't even remember what it was about. But we got into an argument about
And Sarah and
something.
I just look at each other and wanna roll our eyes at the whole situation, yeah.
But it was still quality time,
It
arguing and all. It
was,
was still
it
quality
was.
time to be able to spend that because we are affirming to them, we love you, we value, we want to be able to
Mhm.
spend time with you.
Yeah, and another way that we can affirm value in our kids is by showing affection as well, and we have a saying in our home growing up,
Hugs are free.
"Hugs are free. Hugs are free." If you need a hug, you don't even have to ask for that. I'm here for all the hugs and all the affection, and even to this day, when our boys come over to the house, they leave, or any time that I see them, uh, I'm always going to get my
Yeah.
hug, before we leave. And so I think that's important to be affectionate. It's okay to say that I love you, and be vocal about that, but then also to affirm the fact of how much you appreciate them, and that just they're part of being in your life.
Yeah, let me back up on that a little bit because you're talking about affection. A lot of times men are
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm not going to, especially if we're okay showing affection if we got daughters. I
Mhm.
didn't have daughters. I'm sure I would have, just like I do with the grandbabies, I would have hugged them, loved on them, all that kind of
Right.
stuff, just to show them how much Papa loves you. With the boys, a lot of times as men, we're like, nah, we don't want to do that. We're going to turn them into girly men if we do that. But I got to tell you something. I was always affectionate with my sons, would always hug them, would always tell them I love them, and still do to this day.
Mhm.
There's not a conversation. We don't get off the phone with each other. We don't tell, each other we love you. There's not a time that they don't come to the house that I don't give them a hug goodbye or give them a hug when they walk in the door, and we're talking like we're not girly men. We're manly men. We hunt, we
Mhm.
fish, we do all the things that you would consider, to be manly.
Right.
Even if you don't hunt or fish, you can still be manly.
Mm.
But I'm never going to back up from showing my sons affection, showing them love, because I
Right.
think that it affirms that value in them, that dad
Mhm.
cares for you, dad loves you.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing is this, because we're talking about bringing out the best in our kiddos, and I think affirming their value is huge. But this is one thing that when you go back to when they're younger is this, it's learn to, as parents, trust your kids with responsibility.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, a lot of times, especially as dads, we're real hesitant to give them that responsibility because we don't want them to mess stuff up. I remember
But we
whenever the
can't
boys,
always do everything for them.
yep,
Yeah.
you can't fix everything, but I remember especially whenever the boys were getting to the age that they were going to be able to start cutting grass,
Mhm.
keeping up the weed, the flower beds, all that kind of stuff. I was a little nervous because I wanted my yard to look a certain way, wanted my flower bed to look really good. But I found that if I would just kind of back off this a little bit and really trust them with the responsibility, that they would shine, because it was showing them
Yeah.
that I trust you, I believe in you.
Well, it's giving them room to grow too,
Absolutely.
and they can make some mistakes, and that's okay. And you give them the room to make mistakes so that they can grow from it, and then you step back and you see how they just blossom. Giving them the responsibility needed, but at age appropriate um, times as well.
Well,
Age appropriate chores and different things that you can release to them.
I think trust is important. Luke chapter 15 talks about whoever can be trusted with the little can also be trusted with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that mindset is this: if we will not trust our kids with the little things, how can we ever teach them to be responsible with the bigger things as they begin to
Right.
make their way through life?
That's right.
And we're at a place in our society and our culture where you've got a lot of, young people that are growing at they're 20, 25, 30 years of age, having a hard time finding a job, having a hard time finding purpose, having a hard time getting out of, the house and this, that, and the other, and beginning their own life. And I kind of wonder if maybe that was a result of parents not really trusting their kids with a lot of
Mhm.
responsibility,
Mhm.
or training them in that, hey, look, you have to have strong ethic. You have to, you know, go out and get a job and go out and take care of some things, and putting that responsibility before them and teaching
Mhm.
them these things.
Yeah, and it can start with the small things, like I was saying, age appropriate chores, like, letting them feed the dog or set the dinner table, or, let's, gather up all the toys, before bed, different things like that, I think are very important in being able to teach them that that level of responsibility and trusting them with it.
Well, I know this was modeled for me. My parents did this for me. I grew up in the country,
Mhm.
and we raised beagles. We had, chickens and all this type of thing. And there were chores to do every evening. Every morning,
Mhm.
every evening, you had to feed the animals. You had to take care of stuff around the place. And my dad entrusted those things to me from a young age. And whenever I didn't do them, he corrected me. It
Mhm.
was not, he would tell me, like, hey, you need to make sure you take care of this. But if I did not fulfill the responsibilities he had for me, there was correction that took place.
Mhm.
So do
Mhm.
do not be afraid to correct your kids.
That's true. That's true. But correcting them with love.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, what I've enjoyed talking
I
about this.
know.
It's been
I
a lot of
know.
fun talking about the things, or kind of walking down memory lane, and thinking of some of the
Right.
different things that the kid was growing up.
Well, I just encourage our listeners to be intentional, to bring out the best in their kids, and they'll make those deposits because it'll be beneficial.
I do want to go back to that though. Trusting your kids with responsibilities. Teach your kids to work.
Mhm.
They need to, and you said this specifically, trusting them with the little things around the house, chores, and working on things to build that work ethic in them. When they get to a certain age, my first job, I was probably about 12 years old. Then at
Mhm.
14 and 15, I had a job working on a ranch. And then I got a job at McDonald's. And then from there, I've never not worked past a certain age. Whenever I was probably 10 on, I was
Right.
looking for things to do around the neighborhood to be able to make money, and looking for things to be able to do that had responsibility. So teach your kids to work. They need to understand responsibility
Mhm.
attached to having a job, having work in front of them,
Mhm.
because that will stay with them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. So this is a lot of good information, but I will tell you one thing. One of the ways that we can bring out the best in our kids is definitely by loving them unconditionally.
And
Wouldn't you
teaching them to
agree?
love Jesus
And
too.
teaching them to love Jesus. That's
We
right.
we've always said it this way, as pastors, we want to win the world for Christ. We want to
Mhm.
lead people to Christ, but I want to get to heaven one day and see my kids
That's
there.
right. We
So
need to
we
all
were
be together.
very intentional about raising them to love Jesus.
Yes, I agree. I
So
agree. This has
great
been a great
episode.
conversation for sure.
Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and help us get the word out about this podcast and help it continue to grow and move forward. We hope today's episode has been a blessing to
Mhm.
you and to your family. As always, our heart here is to build a stronger marriage and a stronger family. And listen, I'm Jay,
And I'm
and
Stacy.
this is Love Like Crazy.